26 miles, 20, 23, 26 miles. And he was like, I don't even know how to do this. So it was a great meeting. Lots of information exchanged. Glad we don't own our roads.
Stallings, Councilman Steve Ayers also said that his town went on a retreat. At the end of January, council went on a retreat. And they have 2 new councilmen. Marvin Mayor Joseph Barbara said that their flock cameras have resulted in arrests and home break-ins. And he said that they honored a 100-year-old veteran of the World War II and Korea Wars, Charles Rose. They honored him recently. Weddington Councilwoman Ellen McLaughlin did a presentation on safety and security. Because if you'll remember, that's going to be a big issue with WUMA, safety and security. That's something they'd be talking about. So she shared a story about, to tell you what's here in Union County. There was an incident in Weddington that could have been deadly. She said one of the Weddington residents was out of the country, and she watched helplessly as some men broke into her house and began collecting her valuables. And then she watched in horror as her husband walked in on them. It was a South American crime group, and they did not hurt him, and they have been arrested, and they credit the flock cameras in the neighborhood for doing that. A WUMA board discussed passing a resolution asking Catawba to stop putting fluoride in their water. Don said that the fluoride is being placed in the water is an industrial byproduct, which includes industrial waste and arsenic. He said there's currently a state bill about this. And then Brad Elwood, the American Legion Baseball, spoke to the group about asking each municipality to consider giving $2,000 in order for his kids to have the tools to be successful in baseball. That's it.
Is the March meeting here?
Yes. Oh, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
So, I mean, we need to make sure you have that on your calendar.
Anything else? Anything else? I appreciate that. I appreciate you correcting me on that.
All right. Code enforcement report. I am glad that we're trucking right along. Southern Whimsy looks like it's whipping into shape. Any questions about that? Fire district report. I did meet with Chief McClendon a couple weeks ago, and we did review fire districts and talk about the feasibility of getting contiguous fire district, or getting fire district boundaries that match the contiguous Wesley Chapel border. So it would alleviate problems like in Silver Creek, and I think there were a couple other, there were 2 other areas where there's some neighborhoods serviced by more than one place. Apparently they'd already talked to Bakers and Stallings about one area, about kind of trading off. And apparently Weddington and Marvin a few years ago adjusted their boundaries. And he said it's a pretty simple process. We'd have to get work with the county, get a map drawn up. Then the state has to approve it. He didn't see problems with the state approving it because I think there's like a 5-mile rule as long as you're within 5 miles of your fire department. He thought Bakers would be receptive. Apparently Mineral Springs is a little more territorial. And tax rates would go down for the people who changed from other fire departments to the Wesley Chapel Fire Department. It wouldn't include every neighborhood because like Winding Creek is not contiguous. So there are a few outliers that would not be worth changing the boundaries for that.
And it impacts home insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I pay a higher insurance rate because I'm with Mineral Springs, which is a lower rated fire department in Wesley Chapel. If I move to Wesley Chapel and all my neighbors on the street move to Wesley Chapel, we get lower home insurance rate.
He did say it wouldn't happen fast. It would probably be fiscal year 28 before anything could happen. I did email the county and tell them we were interested, but I would like just a motion from council to move forward with pursuing, updating fire district lines to contiguous Wesley Chapel borders.
So motion.
Is there a second? Any questions? All in favor? All right, unanimous. Planning Board, Chair Kennery.
We're all done with the primaries. Yay.
Now we'll
Signs
do
are
signs
down.
get picked up.
So our last public meeting for the planning board, I could have taken everyone out and got them ice cream with 3 scoops on it. How many were in attendance? 0.
Aw.
No, the planning board was
Oh,
out here.
The public,
oh, okay.
0. 0. So our agenda was nothing in the sense of anything new. So we just went over fine tuning some of our ordinances and had a discussion about them. The tree ordinance was brought up and another ordinance about the neighborhoods, the layout of the neighborhoods. And then we discussed the ongoing projects that Ms. Hines will be speaking about shortly, the roads. Roads played a big role here. That's about it. That's all for us and the planning board. Like I said, it was a pretty quick meeting in that regards. You brought up something earlier about the last meeting I was not able to attend because unfortunately I got stuck doing that other job's business, and I got to I failed to see the presence of the chiefs, Mr. Underwood and Mr. Gazai here being here. And I saw that you mentioned earlier about another deputy. Was that discussed or not?
That was not discussed at the last
Okay.
meeting.
Well, I was just going to say that some people here in the county use other means not to have a full-time deputy.
Like,
Like if you had a church or a business, they would hire, let's just say it was a school or a church, right? Someone that wanted to have a deputy there, right? They would hire them for off-duty work. And let's just say if it was 6 hours at the going rate, it would be $240. And then you take that over 50 weeks, I didn't do 52, you'd be about $60,000. And that's what some schools or businesses do, instead of having, like a school would have a private school, a church school, whatever you wish to call it, or other business, without having a full-time deputy assigned there, just when their business is during operation. And as you know, there are other towns and villages that hire off-duty deputies from the county to work certain events or a specific time for those events if it's a ongoing event, you know what I mean? Let it be road or a function that they want to have, and that's what they do. Instead of
We
having,
do when we have events at the park. Kinda
What?
Like what we did.
yeah,
when we
when you have events at the park, right? And that's what they do. So there are, it's no secret, there are deputies that, Five Stones is a perfect example right here. They hire a deputy to be there for their school during the day. And there's one just about every day down at Five Stones because they want them there for their school, their church. And that's what they do. And they're there. And there's others around here, other churches / schools that do that on a weekly basis, a yearly basis in the county. It's not unusual. That's all. Just another option instead of going for the full ride. I know what it costs. Ms. Hines, I'm done. If you have any questions. I know we all see the progress that's being made at the former Whimsy. Moving along somewhat.
it is moving along.
Yes.
That middle wall is down.
Yeah, I know. All right, that's all I have. Any questions?
John, you need to get the name of the equipment operator. All right, Ms. Hines?
One question
Oh, one
on planning
question.
board, yeah. Are you guys scheduled to have a meeting next month? Yes.
This month.
March, this month?
I'm sorry, yeah, March, yeah. Okay, good, thank you. Does that ice cream offer still stand?
Well, maybe not the three scoops.
That leads into we will actually we do have something on the agenda for our March meeting. McCoy Farms has submitted the final plat for Phase 2. It's the 22 lots. The first phase was the roads, everything. Phase 2 is 22 lots in the back of the property, in the rear of the road. And everything's
That'll
already
be-
been submitted?
Ma'am?
Everything's already been submitted, so they'll have it in advance?
Yep,
Thank
Amy has
you.
it. Already read the staff report, we've got paper copies, everything. So that'll be. So that'll be coming in March, and that'll be coming to y'all in April. There are no updates for Aurora at Price Mill.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
keep hearing, every month we talk Aurora Price Mill, and people are talking about, what exactly is the status of Aurora Price Mill?
They're working on their plans.
So it's a name for a potential subdivision on 84, that's about it?
Yes, I mean, I have seen plans, but they haven't
Right,
submitted them to the
exactly.
point of going to planning board. They're still working through.
Yeah, there's nothing that's been approved or anything else. To
No.
our official knowledge, it is the name of the potential subdivision on 84.
Yes.
Where on 84?
It's just on this side of Pinnacle. It's actually on both sides of the road,
That's what I was gonna ask. It's both sides of 84.
both sides of the road.
Did you, at some point, every tree in that whole section over there, on both sides of the roads, have white ribbons around them? Does that mean they're gonna come down, or does that mean they're gonna stay up, or what does that mean?
I think I asked that when you asked me, and I don't remember. I think that meant they were going to keep those.
Yeah, because it's every single tree on that road.
I remember you asking me, I remember finding the answer. I believe it was. There it is. The ribbons are from the recent tree survey conducted in response to comments received from Union County. The ribbons are only marking trees within the property limits of the proposed development. So, yeah, that was the answer to what the ribbons were. It was about the tree survey that they were doing. That's what they had them marked.
Thank you so much.
It's also why they tore down the old house that the tree fell on. That will be part of the development.
So the Price family sold that?
I guess. Yeah. Any updates on Village Commons?
Yes. Well, the only change from last month is that we have received upfit plans for the Venice Nail Spa that's going beside Publix. So that's going in there. That was the only change from last month. And, y'all have any questions? And then there's no changes. I looked at Aston's website also. They didn't, and I provided y'all with that set of plans last month. There was no change that they had. So I just wanted to see if they had done anything on their side, contracts or anything like that. And there was no change on their information. Moving on to road improvement projects, the NC 84 and Potter Road intersection, they're still working on planning and design for that, and so they have DOT has delayed construction for fiscal year 2028 to fiscal year 2029.
Or any of us,
This is my shock face.
any of us.
Newtown, Cuthbertson, it's the NCDOT project. The design work is still underway. I have heard no updates on the developer funded project. That's standstill, haven't, email, talked to
planning, they have no updates for me for that.
And the next one is where I misspoke. We got, a funding award was announced, and I got excited and thought it was Billy Howie and Waxhaw Indian Trail. I was wrong. It is Billy Howie and Newtown.
Newtown Road, yes.
So I got excited for the wrong reason.
That has, we received information that they, NCDOT has selected that intersection for their spot mobility project. It was selected in January, and when I asked if there was any kind of timeline or anything like that, they said, no, there's no concrete timeline. The approved state funding will be used as a match to pursue federal funds at the end of this year. NCDOT says hopefully this project will get selected and will be available for funding in early 2027.
So this is Billy Howie in Newtown,
Yes, ma'am.
which I have been saying forever. Why are we working on Wax Indian Trail instead of
Yeah,
Newtown?
so it's Billy Howie in Newtown.
Yes, but we're still working on Billy Howie and Wax Indian Trail. We're working on the other end. So
Yeah,
that
Billy
is
Howie and
great
Wax-
news. to
Yeah,
hear.
Billy Howie and Waxhaw Indian Trail, that intersection was
Yeah, that's
part
already done.
of the previous curriculum.
Yeah, we paid for that.
Yep.
So it is great to hear something happening on Billy Howie and Newtown, even if
And
it is in
that-
the next century.
So then that leads into, next Tuesday at 6 PM is the virtual public meeting. I'm sure y'all all have seen the little postcards that all of the public has received on the chairs. These were mailed out to people, property owners surrounding the intersection. We have posted information about the virtual meeting on the website and on our Facebook page. Amy has gotten a couple of comments about it. I've got a couple of emails about it. But you can already go online. The story map is already there. People can find out what the options are, what the proposals are, pros and the cons, the amount, the money. They can go ahead and look at that and provide feedback already on that. But like I said, we will have our virtual meeting at 6 PM next Tuesday, where people will be able to get more information, and we'll be able to take the public's comments and put that into a report that will eventually be coming to y'all for a recommendation.
Amy, did we send it on the sunshine list too? Thank you.
So we've gotten it out as much as we possibly can. Like I said, we've got these at the front, we've got these here. We've tried to post it everywhere we can.
And you had asked me where I found that announcement about.
The
It
other
was
set of
on the
miles?
CRTPO announcement. Amy shared it from our Facebook page, and it lists 935,000.
Okay, because I looked.
Versus I saw the
couldn't-
700
okay.
too.
Everything I saw had the other set of, and I looked at all my CRTPO stuff, and I couldn't find that. That's why I didn't know where that,
Yeah, it was in that funding announcement that's on Facebook.
okay.
All right, any questions for Ms. Hines?
Yes, two questions. One regarding the Cuthbertson Road turn lane that's being funded by the developer. Do we know, or if Waxhaw and Union County are getting as much input from residents, or maybe outcry from residents about this as we are?
They must not, but I guess they're not, because, I mean, I don't really know. But I can definitely keep following up.
Could we ask Emily to make that call, and just to find out, to see if there's any, if we can gain any synergies by the three of us working together?
Sure.
And then, second question, Emily, I should know this, are you the TCP for CRTPO for us now?
Yes.
Okay. I was asked this today, but and I told him I didn't know, something about, and I know it's outside of Wesley Chapel, but this person said that there's a lot of people who use Highway 84 to get into Monroe from here. An improvement at Willoughby Road and Highway 84. Are you aware of anything going on there?
Yeah, I saw that.
Is that part of the,
Is it on the list
on the
now?
critical
Okay,
intersection?
okay, I'll go back and look then.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for like their next round of things.
Yeah.
Because I saw that and I was like, oh, God, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
Kind of like as much fun as 84 Park.
absolutely, yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm singularly focused on the Irish, and so I'm like, maybe?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. That leads us to the Dogwood Park report.
Evening, everybody. Flock camera, on the general update, flock camera situation talked about. I have reached out to the urban forester about 3 large trees in the park. 2, I mean, all 3 are this big around. 2 are beeches. They're not near a trail, so it's not a matter of urgency. 2 are beaches that have been damaged in previous storms, got splits in them. I think they need to come down. 1 is an American sycamore. It's this big around. It is huge, but it looks like rot is starting from the bottom in the middle of the trunk. I'm not making any decision or recommendation about taking them down till the urban forester looks at them. If we can save them, great. If we can't, we need to be proactive and drop them before they fall on somebody. So just heads up, that might be coming next month. We have a budget for taking care of it, so it won't need any additional funds other than in the budget. But I don't want to cut them down till I've had an expert opinion. The park is extremely busy now the weather warmed up, especially the mini golf course. I mean, unbelievable how much that is getting used. Several times people have heard about it by word of mouth or on Facebook, and they come in looking around the park. I've seen them down by the dam. Excuse me, do you know where the mini golf is? So Amy got me a sign made that says playground this way, mini golf that way, so people know where to go. I've been telling everybody about the ribbon cutting we're planning. I need to get with you about dates you're not available, not now. I want to finish up a few things around it. We've got somebody who's going to provide us with a course map, the Edwin Watts Golf Shop. We got somebody to donate the time to do all the artwork of a map of the course. We've now got that artwork to Edwin Watts, and Edwin Watts is working with a print shop to make us a nice big metal sign that's a map of the course we'll stick up on the container for free.
Yay.
And then I might be talking to him about how about sponsoring the trophies so we don't have to buy those either. We'll see. Last month when we talked about events, having a small event, kind of an open mic thing, I reached out to the local School of Rock to see if they'd be interested. They're very interested in working with us, so we can actually have Wesley Chapel kids come to the open mic and have their bands play at this event. Just an experiment, keeping it small to see how it goes. So that brings me to the pond.
One question, John, before you get to the park. The Eagle Scout project, has it started?
Not yet, no. It's been very cold, so I'm sure he's been waiting on it to get warm to pour concrete. No, it has not started. But it's all signed off. You guys have approved it, they've approved it. If I don't hear from him in a while, I'll reach out and say, hey, when you're gonna start. So, on to the big thing. I might, if you see me waving my hand like this, it's because I'm going to be pointing at something on a particular chart. Just to point out, I had to solicit Emily's help before. I was like this with the pointer. It's not working. And Emily said, let me fix it for you.
Actually, I turned it off.
Fixed it, so if you watch TV shows, you'll know that you watch a series, right? And when they start a new episode, they sometimes do a recap of the prior episodes to highlight some important points. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a recap as we go through this. basically what I'm gonna do is, like, do a recap, talk about what the contracts are proposed to continue, conditions for continuation, counter proposals I made. Then at the last council meeting, we said, okay, get a meeting with the contractor. David, myself, Amy had a meeting with the contractor to discuss potential path forwards. You saw the minutes of that meeting. I distributed them to you all. David reviewed them before I sent them out. Amy reviewed them for accuracy. Those minutes accurately reflect what occurred. I'm going to talk a bit about some of those things. And then I'm going to talk about other potential paths forward that I've worked on with Amy. And then I'm going to lay some options for decisions on you guys. So Amy, if you would, the next slide, sorry. So this is part of that recap thing. If I'm going to wave my hand now pointing at stuff. If you go from the dam here, this grey shaded area, all of that was in the original contract to be removed. What we did, we asked people, give us a price for removing all that muck based on an assumption it was 2 feet deep on average throughout. And that was always an estimate. I added another area here that'll become relevant later. Since the dam has been breached here, this is about where the water goes to if we're not pumping it out, siphoning it out. The water gets to about here. All this, I'll show you photographs later, remains dry with a creek, a channel running through it when we get rain. So based on the original plan, it was 4,700 cubic yards. And one thing I want to stick in the back of your head, it includes removal of all this sediment towards the head of the pond. That was included in the original price. So if you look at the table here, the terms of the contract were fixed fee for mobilization, removal of 700 to 4,700 cubic yards. If the volume was less, we were going to pay for less removal at the cubic yard rate, so we wouldn't have spent all the money. If the volume was higher, we were going to continue removing until we expended the budget. And the number here, this volume, at the contracted cubic yard rate, if we expended the entire budget under the contract terms, we would have moved 5,235 yards. That ends up, so the original contract was $221,000, but if we expended the entire budget, it was around 240. So next one, Amy. Gone the wrong way. Right. So the reason that number 240 is important is Laurie told me we had about 246, it might be a little higher than that now, balance of the grant money. The all-in cost from that, expending the budget, 240. We got some currently unpaid engineering, legal, and possible other costs. Don't know exactly what they are. I've pegged it at 6,000. So you start with 246, 240 to do the work, 6,000 on other stuff. We don't give anything back to the grant people, right? That's an important point that I'm going to say again later on. Amy, next one. So, what happened? Again, this is the recap. Contractor came in, started moving dirt, got to this point here, found it was deep, halted work. And a few days later, pulled his equipment off site. So, when he stopped work, he said, I can't do it for the money that I bid. I asked, well, what can you do it for? So, he came back with a proposal. I estimate the 700,000 cubic yards, not 4,700. I need an extra $40,000 mobilization to bring some additional equipment. And because it's deeper, I got to charge you $108 a cubic yard instead of 3586. Add them all together for the all-in cost, 850,000, or it went from an all-in of 46 to 121. Told him, that ain't happening, we ain't got the money, not going to do that. So that then brought us to the next slide. So what can I propose back to him under the current contract? So took some depth measurements around the pond, not this many in the beginning, but all these around the lower numbers, I took measurements, and, no, don't go, you keep changing on me?
You're doing it.
Oh, I'm doing it. Oh, good.
I didn't even know it could do that.
I don't have to ask you now, great. So, so we took all these measurements to come up with what I'm going to call a stay in your lane counter proposal. And by stay in your lane, I mean stay to where it's 2 foot or less average depth. Avoid the deep areas. And then so we took all these measurements, 30 of them. These are the depth of them. They average 21.8 inches or less than 2 feet, which was in the original contract. The contractor still says he can't do it for what he agreed. We did find some points where it's 3 to 4 feet deep. What we found is it's probably the original course of the creek before the dam was built. As you go from here, 1, 2, 3, it starts getting deeper. And then we found at some points around here, it's like 4 feet deep. So the guy wasn't wrong that there are some deep spots. So we got all these numbers to show what the depth was, and let me see if it works now. Brings us to this. No, I went the wrong way. Brings us to this one. So this is the stay in lane proposal. I'm saying, look, we know in all these areas from measurements, it's 2 feet deep or less, right? And all of this was included in the original pricing. Removing all of this was included in the original bid. So stay in your lane, stay away from the deep areas, and you'll remove less. So zone 1 and zone 2 comes out to 3,800 cubic yards, I'm sorry. So under the terms of the original contract, remove 3,800, the mobilization's fixed. That's for removal of the 3,800 at the contracted rate. You should do this for 188,000. No, can't do that. It's more complicated. Deeper than 2 foot I've got to deal with. It's more complicated than that. I can't do it for that price. Okay, maybe I can go to council and say, look, let's keep the contract rate the same, and I'll pay you for moving the 3,800 what you were originally going to get paid for moving 4,700. David asked the question, why would you do that? I'm like, well, that's trying to compromise, acknowledge there may be more difficulties, stay with the current contractor, keep going. The contractor rejected both of those proposals, but no, not going to do that. So a wise man who was at the meeting said, oh, let me just cover the financial consequences of the stay in lane proposals. So again, we start with the 246, we got the all-in cost minus that. If he did the stay in lane work, we'd end up giving 51,000, 52,000 back to the grant people. Not an ideal situation. If we did the compromise, we give him less back. Maybe we could find some additional work. He takes out a few more cubic yards to use that up, so we don't give him anything back. But he rejected them anyway, so it's a bit irrelevant. I just wanted to point out to you, I was trying to use the money with the existing contractor. So, some smart guy who was at the meeting asked, well, what can you do? And the answer was, well, I'll start and I'll go as far as I can for the mobilization rate I quoted and the cubic yard rate I quoted for whatever I remove. So when you ask, well, how far can you go? And what cubic yard is it? It's like, I don't know, maybe up to the pier, which is this line right here. There's the pier. Maybe I can start at the bottom and get up to there, and it'll be about 2,000 cubic yards. maybe I can go further, but I won't know till I start working. I didn't really like that because I like boundaries. So talked to Amy and said, well, look, we know that spot right there is where he stopped, dropped tools, got off site and said, I can't do it. So I've said, okay, well, that point's as far as he can possibly go. So we got line 1 up to the pier, which he stated, line 2, where he stopped working before. So then what I did, all right, let's consider the impact if we go with that. Right? Let's say we accept what he can do and we stay with him. So Amy took those measurements and those areas, and she did me what I asked, which was like, all right, what's the best case scenario, worst case scenario, most likely? If you've ever done NPV analysis, financial analysis, that's what you do. So Amy took the areas, using the depth we both measured, and calculated the volumes. So she comes up with up to what can you do, so that's up to the pier. If it's all 2 feet deep, it's 1,400 or 1,500. If it's 3 feet, it's 2,200. And Amy's best estimate is that it's 1,700. So cubic yards. So if we pay the mobilization fee for any of those options, and then the removal fee at the contracted rate of $35.86, you add them together, you got the all-in, and then you divide the all-in by the volume, you've got the all-in rate per cubic yard, which is considerably higher than what was originally contracted. Use the second line where he stops at the deep point, you got different volumes, your denominator's bigger, so the mobilization gets divided by a bigger number and that component goes down. So you end up with different cubic yard rate, but again, still significantly higher. The important thing are the financial consequences of going either of these routes. If you go the first route, and I'll just use Amy's best guess as the example, we start with 246, we got an all-in cost of 113, 6,000 in other costs. We end up giving 126,000 back to the grant people because we've not spent it. Same thing on, he goes a bit further, 246, all is 121, we give up 118. So under all of these scenarios, we're returning $99,000 to $135,000 of the money we got, because we won't have time to do another contract. Another contractor won't be interested in a tiny little job. So when we concluded the meeting with the contractor, David, Amy, and myself sat down and said, you know what, I think we best look at alternates, because that ain't looking like a good thing to do. So just a few other points before I move on to the alternates. The contractor brought equipment, materials onto the site, began dewatering, began moving earth, and I erroneously interpreted that as mobilization. The contractor corrected me a couple of times, he did not mobilize. So he comes on the site, starts working, finds a spot 4 feet deep, stops and says, I can't do it, here's a proposal. I can't do it, here's another proposal because there's a change in scope, and that proposal was about 4 times the original price. So, as I've reported to you, the contractor did not provide the village with a performance bond prior to mobilization, as was required by the contract. But he says, I didn't mobilize. But he sent us an invoice for mobilization.
Was mobilization
He said-
defined in the contract?
No. There are generally accepted engineering things that are written in there that you have to do before you start the work. Amy and my interpretation is it's everything you needed to do before you started moving dirt is mobilization. Hey, we'll end up having to have a discussion about it with the contractor, I think. But he didn't mobilize, so it might be a moot point. So he did submit an invoice for mobilization, but he says since he didn't mobilize, The only reason he submitted an invoice is because I asked him to. And I asked him to because we needed to move funds. The contract says he gives us the invoice for mobilization a day after he mobilizes. I saw equipment on site and work happening. My bad, I interpreted that as mobilization, so I asked him to send us the invoice. He did send us the invoice, but he didn't mobilize. Now we get to, and the lawyers have said, the fact that he didn't provide the performance bond prior to mobilization is a material breach of the contract. But now we've got to a point where he's failed to meet any of the time elements of the contract. He's not mobilized yet, and he should have already completed the work by his own statement. So George, I had a long conversation with George today about this stuff. George says, yeah, there's sufficient cause to terminate. So following the meeting with the contractor and internal discussions, three of us concluded it's in the village's best interest to maybe look to alternates. David provided me with the name of 2 local grading contractors, and I have another 2, one of which was the company who did the breach. Name has changed. I'm not going to mention names today. Name has changed, but it's the same people. So, this is one of Amy's drawings. Instead of saying, like we did on the very first slide, here's the area we want cleaning, how much is it going to cost? We said, here's the pot of gold, how much can you do for it? So we don't know exactly where we're going to be between the 246 and the 200 after all the other expenses are done. So what I asked each contractor to do is take all those depth measurements, and they all had them, and they all visited the site. So I walked the site with all of the potential contractors, gave them all those depth measurements and said, draw me a line on how far you think you can clear for $200,000 and for $240,000. So if you look at this chart, this current is the current contractor. So there's the up to the pier line and the volumes Amy calculated. There's the extra, go as far as you can to the point you stopped. You add this on to get those volumes. So, I asked, you'll see second contractor, line A and line B. There was a first contractor I invited out. He looked, took the measurements away, came back to me and said, look, it's going to cost me $100,000 in trucking alone because I don't own trucks. And he said, for 200,000, 240,000, I'm going to be able to do this. But since that was way cheaper with the current contractor, I did not pursue that one any further. So, that was the first contractor. Second contractor comes in, is the blue line. He wants to start at the bottom of the pond and work up. This guy has built some huge ponds and he's done work locally. That's what he does, he builds ponds. He's got some special equipment like a 36-inch wide tracked bulldozer that can move wet muck. He said he can do all up to this blue line for 200, and he can go to this red line here for 240. Similar approach to the current contractor, starting at the bottom and working up. Another contractor, very local company, went with starting from the bottom, avoiding the deep stuff, and basically they're doing stay in your lane stuff, staying in the shallow stuff. And his numbers, he said he can get round to here for 200 and to the purple line for 240. In reality, we're probably going to end up having money left between 200 and 240, so we're going to end up cleaning to about here or about here, depending on which approach we go with. There is another one, couldn't put it on this chart, or Amy couldn't put it on this chart because it got too confusing, but after I crunch these numbers for you, I'll get to that. So, Just some comments about the pros and cons of going from the bottom up versus the top down. And the stay-in lane is like a hybrid between the two. So from the very beginning, we planned on starting at the top and working down. That was the plan. That's the preferred, but there's pros and cons to both approaches. So the pros for starting at the top and working down, as you'll see in a minute, we clear a larger area. Not necessarily a larger volume, but a larger area of the pond bed. Another pro is that if you clean the bottom first and leave the stuff on the top, over the next 4 years till we have money to fix the dam, that silt is going to wash down into the bottom, and we may end up having to repeat the work cleaning the bottom out when we fix the dam. So that's another plus in my mind. It's kind of aesthetic. Is I showed you where the current water level stops in the very first slide. Once we remove more, and I'll show you photographs later, once we remove sediment from further uphill, we'll have a bigger pond. So it'll look more attractive temporarily. And then if you, anything that we don't clear in the bottom and we leave till we fix the dam, it's going to be submerged in water, so you won't see it anyway. So there's another aesthetic benefit to it. The downside is, there's two downsides. One is because you're moving the dirt further from the head of the pond to the dam to truck it out, it may end up being higher dollar per cubic yard now, but you spend it now, you don't spend it again when it washes down to the bottom of the pond. Because you've got to move the dirt further, it might be a longer execution period, which concerns me if you're banging up against the June 30 deadline, which we might not necessarily be. So flip it round, look at the pros and cons from the bottom up. Possibly lower per cubic yard rate now, but we may have to repeat it if the stuff from the top washes down. Because it's closer together, it's faster. We'll have a deeper water reservoir. Not that it's been a problem yet, but we'll have a lot deeper water reservoir around the intake for the irrigation system. So if we went 6 weeks without rain like we did last year, I'll still have water left to irrigate the grass with. It got close last year when we didn't have rain for 6 weeks. So to me, that's a pro. We got more irrigation water if we do that. The cons are things that were pros in the other one. If we clean out the bottom and leave the stuff at the top, it's going to wash down and we may end up having to move it again in 4 years. We don't get additional pond area, right? And the stuff that isn't clean won't get submerged, so it'll still be visible, and you'll see pictures of that in a minute. And then the other con is, if we do the bottom now, and we go to do the rest when we fix the dam, it's a much bigger challenge to go up to the head of the pond and get all that out when we're fixing the dam than it is before. So just things to think about, because the dollars might not be the only criteria you want to consider for making the decision. So this is the post-breach pond level as it exists now, after rain, without me pumping it. And it's kind of two pictures merged together, but they're pretty close. So right now, the water ends right about there. This is post-breach. It used to be, the water used to be up to the bottom of this orange fence before we breached the dam, and all of this was underwater, all of it. So the old water level's there, probably 4 feet higher than it is right now. Right now, because of the breach, that's where we are. If we clean all this muck out, if you look very carefully in this channel here, you can see the surface of the water up to about this yellow line. So if we clean the top out, this will now all be water. So the pond will be much bigger. That's the point I was making. That's just a visual so you can see it. So that same line, this is a different angle. That's the current water line there. You can see this channel is full to the brim up to about here. If we clean out the top, this will now all be water about 2-3 feet deep. And some of this, it may go further, but I'm not quite sure where. This is looking the other way. And this red arrow, so that there and that there are the same log across the creek. We may flood it all the way up to here once all this is cleaned out. So we're somewhere between there and there will all be submerged and look like nice pond surface. This part here the muck will be removed and it'll be bare clay, but that won't ever get filled till we fix the dam. But there'll be no silt there to wash down to the bottom. All this silt, this channel, that used to be silt like the rest, but it's all been washed down to the bottom through this channel. And you get heavy rain, more of that, this is going to widen, it's going to wash down. I don't know exactly where the post-clearing level will be, but it's somewhere between there and there. So, I talked about that already. Similar to current contractor, basically said thanks for the opportunity, but with likely $100,000 worth of subcontracts in the trucking, I can't be competitive. Thanks for the offer. So I didn't take that into it. Right, so you saw the diagrams. I had these alternates. Did the same calculations for the $200,000 line. For the $200,000 line and the $240,000 line. So basically it's the same stuff. Calculate the yards. We got the $200,000 line, best case, worst case, most likely. The $240,000 line, best case, worst case, most likely. Do all the calculation. In this case, we've got an all-in fixed cost because we're asking them for a lump sum. What can you do for 200? What can you do for 240? Divide it by the volumes, you get a comparative apples to apples dollar per cubic yard rate. Look at the financial consequences, and this will be the same for all these proposals because they're all shooting for the same thing. What can you do for 200? What can you do for 240? In the first one, you see we start with 246, we spend 200, $6,000 on legal, we end up with 40. Now, the reality might be we have to give some of that 40 to the contractor, the current contractor, for whatever he's done. Maybe we don't, maybe we do. So that may, what's indicating on this chart, may have to move from giving back to the state into other costs. If we go the whole full 240 and spend it all, we're not giving anything back to the state, which is more along the lines of what we were supposed to be doing in the beginning, spending all the money. Did the same thing for the staying lane, the financial consequences are the same. We're moving significantly less yardage in some of these cases, so the per cubic yard all-in rate is higher than that other proposal starting from the bottom. You see, starting from the bottom with the current contractor, starting from the bottom with contractor B, alternate, staying in lane concept for this one, and the numbers related to it. Now, this is the last one. It's the only top-down proposal we got. And they have said, if I start at the top, what they... Oh, keep pressing on, sorry. What they've said they will do is, instead of before we were trying to save the fish, but now we've got no fish to save, we were going to build a berm here, install a pump and pump around. From the berm about here was in the original plan. Build a temporary dam, hold water, put the fish in it, and then pump the water all the way around here. Got no fish to save anymore because the herons had an all-day fish buffet for a few weeks. So this plan would involve, right here we've got a 240 three-phase electrical outlet. this plan would involve excavating a sump here and using an electric pump from the existing electric supply to pump 24/7, so you don't have to keep filling the gas tanks up every hour on the pumps, which I have to do right now. Once an hour I'm down filling the gas. So they pump from here, kind of create a channel. The channel already exists about here. They create a channel to direct the water into the sump. That would be about here. Pump from the sump to dry it all out. And they say for 200,000, they can go from the top and clear to here, which is under the existing water line, and to 240, get all the way around to the pier. My irrigation intake is right there. I could move it and put it in the sump if they leave me that sump. I could do a bit of pipe work and drop it into this. So, fourth proposal, starting at the head of the pond, working down, is another option we have. Crunch the numbers on that, and surprisingly, to me, I was expecting it to be way more expensive per cubic yard, but the numbers don't come out way more expensive when I do that same calculation. So what can you do for 200, best case, worst case, Amy's estimate, best case, worst case, Amy's estimate for the 240 line, financials all remain the same. So we've got a bunch of pretty good looking proposals. They're all slightly different approaches, but in my opinion, every one of them looks better than continuation with the existing. So, possible actions for council to think about. We can choose an approach that we prefer and have Amy B write up revised plans with shading that area instead of the entire pond, which you saw on the first slide. Amy would revise those drawings and scope of work to reflect the approach council would prefer to take. We possibly need a motion to discussion, whether we want Amy to do that. I had in there obtained directions from George regarding statutory requirements, because George emailed me when I asked questions saying he can't answer the questions because he hasn't seen the grant. So we looked today, Amy looked, I got on the phone to OSBM and asked them the question. George was concerned that the grant people, as some do, stipulate procurement guidelines and requirements. OSBM does not. So they just say, follow your normal procurement procedures. And any other general statutory requirement. So George says he'll work with us as we draw up the contract to make sure we're doing that. He thinks it might be required that we have to advertise it, rather than us saying, okay, let's talk to these 5 contractors. We might have to put it out there for everybody to bid on, which is going to delay it a bit. So that's, once we select the thing, have Amy draw up the plans, engineering drawing, put them out to bid if we have to, get the bids in, invite sealed proposal against the revised plans, which you already approved us rebidding last month, and then evaluate those bids, select a contractor, and then execute a new contract, which will be the same as the old one, but with revised drawings. And perhaps because we don't want to wait another month to get there, we might have to have a special council meeting to do that. One other action that would be required if that's the plan council decide to follow, it will require termination of the current contract with the current contractor. So George would probably have to draw up some documents to send the contractor, and that then would probably trigger some discussion about compensation that's due for the work. mobilization, that wasn't a mobilization. That's probably gonna have to be negotiated. And until that happens, we can't really nail down, do we have 200,000? Do we have 243,000? Do we have 220,000? Do we have 248,000? We kind of need to run these things concurrently, but maybe base it on a minimum of $200,000. And if there's, like we did in the first contract, if there's more budget by the time work starts, you continue removing until you expend the budget. We had that clause in the first contract. Just a couple other points before you start talking about it and firing questions at me. Ongoing dewatering. The reason I bring this up is because one of the contractors said, look, moving wet muck, we can only put about 8 yards in a truck. Dry dirt, we can get 12, sometimes 13, 14, depending on the truck. So basically what that says is, wet is 66% of the dry volume per truck, right? You can move a lot less per truck when it's wet. So the guy said trucking alone in this is going to be at about $100,000 cost. So if we could get from wet muck to totally dry muck, which is impossible, but if we can get it drier, that's like $34,000 saving on trucking if the muck is dry versus the muck being wet. So to me that begs the question, do we want to consider spending some money on a larger siphon and a larger pump? In these photos you can see I have 3. This blue pump in the middle was donated by Friends of Parks and Rec 10 years ago. It was seized up. We bought some parts, and Big Dave, being the mechanical genius he is, fixed it and got it running again. This was the pump we bought for the breach and got reimbursed for. And I went out because it's going very slow. I bought a new pump because they were on sale for $212 instead of $400. Well, these 3 little pumps, see them pumping there, I'm only moving about 450 gallons a minute. So it's very slow to empty the pond after a rain. We have 164 acres drains into that pond. I had it almost bone dry last week. We got a rain over the weekend, pond's full again. So it's taken me 3-4 days pumping, plus this 2-inch siphon to get the pond down. The siphon just about keeps up with the non-raining inflow into the pond from the creek, but it doesn't drop the level. Get the 3 pumps running and the siphon, I can get the level down, but it takes me 3 to 4 days. The longer you leave it out of the water, the harder it packs, the drier it gets, the less water's in it, the more volume I can get on the truck. So I thought it was a no-brainer going out and spending like $300 on the pump and the hose to keep it as dry as possible. There's a possibility I can keep it even drier if we spend some more money. When dam safety came out in advance of Helene, they brought a 6-inch siphon that emptied the pond in no time. But that's not cheap. Because you got 6-inch valves, 6-inch T-pieces, 6-inch elbows. Pumps bigger than this, those are 2.5-inch. 3.5-inch pump are about $500 a pop, and they pump twice as much water. And that's all I have.
Would a new pump be covered by the grant?
Would the pump be covered by the grant? I think we could say yes. Part of the project, dewatering. So they're about, about $500 for the big ones.
So can I make a motion that we terminate whatever terminate means, the existing contract with Barbie? Have George go ahead and take care of that so that we can get that out of the way before we have to do anything So a motion to terminate the agreement with Barbie such that it is per legal advice.
Have George do that.
Is there a second?
A second, discussion on whether I would use the word terminate, but
Yeah, 'cause
notify.
I'm kinda like, I don't think
but
there is a
notify that
contract.
that there's no contract in place, therefore we're not moving
So-
forward, and
I'll withdraw my motion and to say, I make a motion for George and his legal team to work on, us ending the relationship with Barbie and with the sedimentation removal.
Then you withdraw your second.
I withdrew my second, but approved, or, yeah. Seconded that.
Any further discussion?
I have lots of questions, but they're more for George.
So go on, hit me.
For the contract aspect, like whether or not there's liquidated damages, there's any kind of damages clauses in the contract that we need to be aware of, but I'm assuming that underneath the motion, and second as written, that he will,
That's for George to figure.
will give that information to us.
Yeah.
So the situation how it's been left, the contractor laid numerous, they're referred to as mats. They're not actually mats, they're about yay cross-section, timbers 12 feet long. They call them mats because they lay them on the mud and they drive the backhoe over it, track backhoe. The contractor did place numerous mats in the pond after it had been dewatered. After the pond filled up again, those things have floated and are all over the pond. You drain down these giant pieces of wood, they're gonna have to be removed. The contractor who comes in has gotta remove them or possibly use them, replace them and reuse them. But they're not the new contractor's property, they were brought on site by the contractor. The contractor first used old used mats. I don't know the number, a guess would be 40, 50 of them. Then he brought in a huge truckload of new ones that he purchased for the job and brought them in from Georgia. They are currently sitting on top of the dam, stack about yay high from me to Amy. So what do we do about them? I don't know. The contractor also, in his exploratory earth moving, moved a bunch of dirt, muck from the bottom of the pond, piled it up, which is the process. You pile it up to let it drain and dry out before you load on a truck. But that pile of muck he created remains in place. To me, that's not a massive deal because the next contractor is going to have to move the muck and pile more on top of it and let it dry out before. I mean, you could say, remove all your mats, or we'll pay somebody else to remove all your mats. It may be that the new contractor is going to need mats anyway, and he might want to negotiate with the current contractor to purchase those mats that are on site instead of the contractor. I don't know what he's going to do, but yeah, there's issues left behind that need to get resolved somehow. And I think the trigger for it will be notice of termination, we're done. Then I think there'll be some claim, well, you owe me this, you owe me that, you owe me that. I think of a fair thing, because the guy came out in good faith and started working. My personal opinion, it's just my opinion, a fair thing would be, if you present us with invoices, we'd consider that covering your out-of-pocket cost as your partial mobilization compensation, but no more than out-of-pocket cost.
I think we should go ahead and leave that up to George and the legal team.
That's the
Yeah.
whole
The
thing,
determination.
because the previous legal advice is because there was no performance bond, there was no valid contract. And in his own words, during the meeting, I understand, he said, bringing the equipment out, and what he did was not mobilization. And therefore, there's no bill due. So, on the one hand, you kind of look at that, that's why I think it's up to George, we look at getting rid of this relationship, and then some proposal negotiations will be going on, and that's what we'll have to deal
I
with.
share your opinion, however, George says, no, you're probably going to owe something.
We don't
Why-
have anything
why,
to
I don't
respond
know.
to yet.
But we need to nail that number down, whether it's 0 or something greater than 0.
I think the motion that,
So we delegate that activity to George, not me,
Yep.
working with the contractor.
Yep.
George,
It's a legal issue.
So
Right.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous?
And that clears the path to do something.
Then could we go ahead and make a motion to put it out to, put out an
is it, so I've got number 1, George takes the actions to end the relationship with the current contractor. Number 2, George negotiates the closeout terms for that.
Well, I mean, as part of closing out the relationship, I'm sure there'll be conversations, and George will bring something back to us.
Okay,
That's what I assume,
right, got it.
based on prior experience.
Got it.
and then can we
So,
put them,
your list that you had that you wanted us to do something with?
Back. Is it still up, Amy?
I could, it went off.
So it was engage,
Thank you.
so choose which approach you prefer. So we got bottom up, stay in lane,
No, I do not want to see me on.
top down. There you go. So you got the different approaches with all the different numbers crunched related there too. So.
So we want to start at the top or we start at the bottom? Is that the gist of what you would like?
Or do the hybrid, stay in your lane.
Wasn't the original start at the top?
The original was start at the top.
start at the bottom.
You want to see the pros and cons of starting at the top and starting at the bottom?
No.
I mean, in my opinion, the original engineer's recommendation and everything, based on what we had, was to start at the top and work your way down for a lot of the reasons you reiterated. Yes, the last contractor came in and said, no, I want to start this way. I can see some others because of the proximity to where you're ending up going. But based on the topography and the way the water is going to flow, it still seems like top to bottom seems like, in my humble opinion, the better way to go.
I echo that. In my simplistic opinion, everything's gonna flow downhill.
Typically does.
Yeah, and if you start at the top, hopefully it'll be less work once we get the dam repaired to clean all that out. If we don't, and if it flows, if we start at the bottom, we're gonna be doing the same exact same thing.
Yeah, round hogs,
And
yeah.
paying for it again and not getting any benefit out of it.
So is there a motion to engage Amy B to draw up revised pond clearing plans based on the top-down proposal, top-down approach?
Council?
I'll make a motion, get it out there. I'll make a motion for us to engage engineering to do a revised pond clearing plan from top down, that we can use for new RFP.
Second.
Now we
Do we need to? Because what would be the difference in what we have already versus what we're asking Amy Black to do now?
But they still need to be revised because the original plan covered the whole pond. Remember slide 1?
Yeah.
It's the entire pond. We can't do the entire pond for the bucket of money we got. So they have to be revised to move it from the dam to the $200,000 line or the $240,000 line. To the $200,000 line, but keep going if we got any money left in the budget to extend the budget. So the plans still have to be revised. It's because we're not cleaning the whole pond.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you. And then you've already approved rebidding it, so once I get the plans from Amy Black, I'll work with Amy Mumpower to draw up the ad for the RFP, invite people to bid, the same process we did the first time around. And then we'll establish, give them 2 weeks or a week to submit their bids. We'll invite the people who've already looked at it, plus anybody else who wants to come in. One of them may be Barbie. So we will be getting other bids in, and then once the bids arrive, we'll set a firm closing date for the bid, sealed envelope. They all got to be here by 3 o'clock on Friday, kind of thing. I'll tabulate the results, and then I'll call for a special council meeting for you to come look at it and approve a contract. Yep. So you've already approved the rebid, you don't have to do that. And then I'll reach out to you about a date for the special council meeting once I establish a bid closing date. That good? Been a bit stressful. Oh, and the other point that some of you may not know, I reached out to Office of State
OSMB.
Budget Management regarding the deadline, to ask how hard is that June 30. So I learned a couple things. One is, we are not the only people in the boat looking at not being able to spend the money by the deadline. There are 500 grantees who may not be able to spend the money they've got by the deadline. As a result of that, OSBM has petitioned the legislature, because only the North Carolina legislature can change the deadline. OSBM has asked the legislature, they're not in session yet, till April sometime, for an extension to this program. But if they only come back in April, they've got to write a bill, get it through the House, get it through the Senate before the end of June for any extension to occur. That may or may not happen.
But there's already been one extension,
There already has been.
so they could just copy the bill.
They could copy the bill and change the date, hopefully, and they're all on the same page and they're all good with it. Yeah. And we could see an extension, general extension. If anybody wants an individual extension, which some people have applied for already, you got to get your House representative, you got to get your senator, you got to go talk to them, get them on your side, get them to introduce a bill, sponsor a bill, and get the bill through before June 30th to extend your individual deadline. Pretty unlikely. However, I learned about this nice thing she told me about encumbrance. So, if you have, as a grantee, a written signed contract committing the funds that was entered into prior to June, and for some reason you can't spend all the money by the end of June, OSBM is allowed to encumber the funds, meaning they'll give you extra time to finish out the contract that you already signed before the deadline without having to give the money back to the state.
Which is different from the information or the way we originally understood it.
So they told me they've not put any information out about this yet because they don't want to confuse people. And they want to wait and see what the legislature does about the extension before they put out instructions about encumbrance. I explained to the lady our situation. She said, yeah, I think that's reasonable. We understand. You could probably encumber the funds, but you need to keep us up to date with our status reports. We could probably encumber the funds for you so you get an additional few months to finish out the contract and spend the money. You don't have to give it back. She said, don't take that as, you still need to target the 30th as your completion date. I went, yeah, I got it. Whether, she said, yeah, we understand fully, that kind of stuff. So that was good news on Friday. And that's it. You have even more questions?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for all the work you've done. Goodness knows you like to squeeze a dollar till it's dead, so I know we're gonna try and get as much money as we possibly
So,
can.
one last question. What do you think about spending some money to be able to empty the pond faster, bigger siphon, maybe not a 6-inch, maybe a 4-inch, bigger pump, couple bigger pumps?
You got the money?
Sorry?
You have the money?
Well, yeah, I'd allocate it to the project.
Then,
So that's $6,000,
Right.
the other.
but even if you didn't, you still have money you could use in other parts of your budget.
Yeah, but I never planned using it for the pond thing. I was cheap, and the money I did have available was a 2-inch pipe.
So, and there's still money in Midland's budget.
That's what I was thinking.
I think it comes down to how much and what you need council to approve for you. Or you have been away.
Well, I would say it's probably best to come out of the grant funds. We all believe it's justifiable to come out of there, since it's dewatering for this project, although it's a capital expenditure. I'd wild guess, I haven't done any research on the cost, I'd estimate 4-inch siphon, $1,000 maybe, and let's say a 3.5-inch pump, run about $500 a pop. And then 2 of those, that'd be another grand.
The critical need for those is just to keep water level down while this
So the
is,
sun can dry out that muck,
Right.
so that we can fit more in a truck and pay less for trucking.
And these would be electric, not gas?
The contractor who proposed the top-down approach, he's the one who said, hey, you got power there, I'll drop an electric pump in and I'll run it 24/7. So, right now, I've got to learn another trick. I was running the pumps flat out, and a tank lasts just about an hour. So I set my phone, bing, 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 1 hour quick, got to run down, fill the pumps up again. One of the contractors told me a trick: if you back off on the throttle, the flow doesn't go down. Full throttle is not the most efficient RPM for pumping. So you can back the throttle down to about 70% full throttle and still get the same flow out of the pumps. That makes the gas last about an hour and a half, hour 40.
How much would an electric sump, like, the contractor wants?
Electric pumps are really expensive.
How much would just a sump pump? High volume sump pump?
Some pumps not gonna
Well,
flow
high volume.
500 gallons a minute, 700 gallons a minute.
But if it's running 24 hours a day and we're not paying gas on it, then in the long run, it's gonna pay for itself, especially with gas prices going towards $4 a gallon.
Just an example, the pump, that is a 5-horse motor that runs the irrigation system, has similar flow, $20,000.
could we write the pump into the RFP? Could we write the draining of the water into the RFP?
Oh, they have to dewater. The scope of work will include dewatering, but they'll dewater, and a lot of the muck is still gonna contain groundwater because it's been submerged, right? If I keep the water down all the time and the sun's baking that dirt, it's gonna dry out more, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's dewatering and moving immediately, or there's dewatering, let it bake in the sun and get as dry as it possibly can. And then
So right now, what we're doing is basically we're at a maintenance level when there's no rain. Should there be rain, the level goes up, and the current pumps that we have aren't sufficient to quickly drain that back down to let the muck get dry again. And if we can have the capacity to quickly drain down after the rain, we're maintaining drier sediment, which then can be more trucked out.
That's the point I was trying to make. Thank you for summarising it so succinctly.
Just said, dry bulk is good luck.
More out the better.
The drier the drier the lower cost in the long run. So.
So you're looking for at least $2,000 for a new pumping system to be able to,
Two pumps and a siphon. Two 3.5-inch pumps and a 4-inch siphon. Materials to build a 4-inch siphon. I'm saying, and I said earlier, this is wild guessing. I know the pumps are about that because I saw them the other day. I was not paying attention to the big one because I was buying the little one that was on sale. And the piping, I just don't know. I do know the 6-inch one with those giant 6-inch ball valves was very expensive. That damn safe to use. So I'm not suggesting we go 6-inch. So basically, it'd be $2,000 going into that line on all the charts you've seen, tables you've seen, that says engineered, legal, and other. $6,000, that might go up to $8,000. If I spend $2,000,
To me, you know what you're doing, and I would be okay giving it to you. But I can't make any motions.
yeah. So we just need council to make a motion of how much we want to approve and to, you know, not, to- I think a not to exceed amount would be appropriate.
you know me, I'm cheap, I'll shop around.
I know.
Get it cheap.
Don't want to be at Harbor Freight.
Cheap, thrifty. The difference.
So I had to drive 100 miles, but I saved $100.
I make a motion that we allocate, or we approve, what's the proper language? Approve $2,000, up to $2,000 for additional pond dewatering systems as chosen by our parks manager
From the grant, not from my.
The grant.
budget.
The OSBM funds.
from the OSBM funds.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
Folks, and I do apologize that you got this very late. I only got some information yesterday, and Amy only crunched the numbers for me, some of them this morning. Apologies.
So long, Mr. Kennery. Thank you, Mr. Lepke.
Good job, John.
Council comments.
I'll start. We are going to have another student art show this year, and the theme for this year is going to be the 250th anniversary of our independence. Newtown has, talking with her, Wesley Chapel Elementary School, I haven't heard back yet from. And how involved do you want us to get, or do you want us to get involved at all in the 250th celebration? Because we don't have any committees anymore.
Well, we had talked about just joining the county one or the overall committee.
One thing that people are doing, they're buying a commemorative tree. That's the only thing I've heard so far. And several different towns are doing that.
I'm okay with a tree. We love trees.
I know. Okay. All right, that's it.
So maybe bring your ideas next month for what tree you would like to recommend council purchase.
Well, whatever we do, we need to do it now and get it in the ground, because when it, this is the time of year, if it gets, has less chance of survival, the closer to summer it gets.
I'll go next. This is the season of Lent, and a lot of times people give up things for Lent. And this year, I decided that I wasn't going to give up anything because I was too selfish. I'm going to take on something. And one of the things that I decided to take on was to send a text to my kids every day, just reinforcing and encouraging them and telling them how proud I am. Every child, yeah, which which takes a while.
Like 40.
That's right. So in that same spirit, with the sign sweep affirmation last month, my affirmation of the sign sweep guy, I'd like to say, the meeting that John and I had with the current proposed subcontractor was really the first time that I had met Amy Black and spent a lot of time with her. I was thoroughly impressed with the way that she handled the meeting, with her knowledge of the with her knowledge of the facts, with the things that she had done to get prepared for that meeting. We have got a treasure, I think, with Amy Black. So kudos to that, and also to John for all the work that he's put into it. Lot of information, and I know that you've gone way above your calling and trying to get this thing resolved, and we certainly, we appreciate that. I appreciate that. Second thing, I'm super happy about the Aston property being finished up. Every morning that I ride by there and I see construction going on, I'm happy with that. One of the questions that I got many times, and I'm sure you guys did the same whenever you were campaigning this last time, was what do you really want to get done on council if you get reelected? And my first answer was, hopefully see this commercial district finished out, and you know, it's getting there. So I'm very happy with that. Third thing, and I wish Mike was still here, because if he'd made the offer to buy ice cream for everyone that has shown up to the monthly CRTPO meetings, he would have to take out a second loan. There has been a lot, and I'm sure you've seen it on the news, a lot of public outcry about the proposed I-77 South project. I didn't realize this, well, I guess I did, but I just forgot about it. But there's over 160,000 cars that use that stretch of 77 a day. You know, and this proposed project is going to be a $3.5 billion project. It's supposed to cover 11 miles of highway. And, you know, the thing that really floored me in the meeting 2 months ago was listening to some of the economic development people saying that with the traffic studies they've done on that stretch of highway, last year there was a 17% increase in waiting time in traffic, and the average person who used that for their commute spent over 48 hours sitting in traffic, not moving. Incredible. But to give you an update on what's going on, when Carpo voted on the recommendation to move forward with this as a P3 delivery process, basically what we were approving was the funding to go ahead and start the process. Somewhere along the way, there were elevated toll roads that were mentioned that we were not aware of. So after last month's meeting, Carpo directed our attorney to provide a legal opinion about whether we could rescind the resolution or not to NCDOT, and right now we're waiting on that. The meeting was scheduled, the next Carpo meeting was scheduled for next week, but we've had to put it off a week, I guess, waiting on that information to come back. So just to get you up to date, there's a lot of voices in the news about this. And while we understand, especially since there's 175 people moving into Charlotte daily now, that traffic's only going to get worse. But we're trying to be responsible, and also responsible to the travelers on that section, and also to the people who may be affected by this. That's all.
That's who Charlotte wanted to model after. This morning on Charlotte Talks, they were doing a piece on that. They've done a few pieces on that stretch of 77, and one of the interesting tidbits was they talked about, you know, there's all these bottlenecks. If you've ever driven it in the afternoon, it's awful. But everybody's like, it's an interstate, it's for through traffic, and the majority of the traffic is local. Because majority of locals use the interstates, 485, whatever, to get back and forth around. It's not really, it's interstate as originally planned, because we have, you know, exits everywhere. But it was an interesting discussion, especially for the neighborhoods that have been primarily affected over the years, and as well as, if we make it tolls and everything else. So I don't know if any of you have noticed the new toll lanes on 485 are opened. And I was coming in yesterday afternoon, evening, and very low traffic. And the toll, if I wanted to go from where it started to 16, to Providence Road, was $1.15. And there was no traffic on the road, it was still gonna be $1.15. So, that's what tolls will do for you. But, I just wanna echo David's comments. Thank you, John, for really bird dogging this and ensuring that, you know, we're getting the most for our money, but most importantly, thinking of the pros, the cons, and, you know, how we cannot just continuously keep repeating this process. So thank you. What's up?
I get to be the broken record. Thanks, everybody. So I had 3 observations tonight, and that is the fact that we have an incredible staff between John with the dam, Emily with keeping us up to date on everything's going on with Ash and everybody else, and even Deputy Wicker coming in and giving us his incredible updates, and then Amy keeping us up to date all the time. I love when I see her name come across the email messages, so I know that there's going to be good information to have. It's just been a true pleasure working with all of them, and I am still early into my tenure here, and I am very excited to continue working with all of them because they are consummate professionals and incredible at what they do. Even George, who's not here tonight.
He's traveling, he asked for a pass. I figure we've paid him enough lately.
Yeah. It was right after we increased his rate.
Oh, I gave up soda for Lent. I need to go home. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Deb, for coming. I said that.
Thank you for calling me.
And a motion to adjourn.
Make motion.
Yep.
All in
Second.
favor? Good night.